Give it a minute. Yeah, it's really hard to believe. I started this when it was still snowing, and who knows? We can see snow anytime now.
And in Michigan.
It is Michigan.
Oh,
All right.
I remember Halloween last year.
Yeah.
It was snowing at Halloween last year.
Yeah.
So that's only a couple of weeks away.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Stories at Sundown. I'm your favorite librarian at Willard Library. The library darling, might I say. Michael, aka Mac McCullough, live from Burley Corners in North Penfield Township. And my guest this evening is media darling.
An icon.
And icon. I forgot. Annie Kelley, now with the I'm always Visitors and Convention Bureau, but you don't call yourself that, right?
No, Calhoun County Visitors Bureau.
That's it. That's it. It used to be that. So
yes, I knew we did conventions.
It's like people still call us the Inquirer the Inquirer News. It'll never go away, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Annie, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you came on. And I think we should disclose of who doesn't know. I mean, everybody probably knows, but we're both veterans of the Battle Creek Inquirer. Mm-hmm. I remember when I interviewed Annie for her first part-time job at the Battle Creek Inquirer. And irony of ironies, Annie said that she was going to go to grad school and be a librarian. And so, I got fired first. And so I went to be a librarian. I took Annie's job. She had to find a different job. And here she is at the Bureau doing what she does.
Yeah, so communications manager.
What's that? Communications manager?
Yeah.
And I did, I'm going to put this up really quick. One of the things, I want to ask you about your job and what you like about it and what you're learning about it. Mm-hmm. But Annie, I subscribe to your weekly newsletter. And there it is, this week's installment.
Ooh. Wow, that looks good when you put it up like that.
Yeah. It's just a charming thing, and it's a letter tell me about how you came up with this idea, Annie.
Oh, well, I mean, it started with my boss, Linda, saying we would like to do a newsletter from the Visitors Bureau, but kind of to Battle Creek, because part of we deal with visitors, but part of making a good visitor experience is making sure that the people who live here love where they live, or at least have a positive feeling about their home.
Yeah.
And so it was going to start off as a monthly newsletter, and just kind of me writing in my own voice, just something that I had observed or seen or felt like that made me feel positive about Battle Creek.
Uh-huh.
And I like the letter format. And then COVID hit. We came into a pandemic, and suddenly it felt like people, like there was a lot of confusing messages, and people were kind of looking for something, a place where you can get a compilation of information. And so that I started putting it out every week, because it has sort of events, tips about things you need to know or do, and then just to kind of balance out into all the news fatigue, just good news that's been out there.
Yeah. Well, and you said it's your voice, and it is, and it's got a calming. And I remember when you started it at the time, during the shutdown, during the pandemic, we were trying to supply resources to people
Mm-hmm.
Through our website, and we posted some on the door. I don't know how many people saw it, but I often mind your newsletter for resources in that as well.
And I took from the library.
Yeah. And it's beautifully written too. I mean, you can see the lead on this. Just imagine it. It's a Michigan winter with gray skies and below zero wind chill, but people are enjoying warm temperatures in the palm room. I know what the palm room is, but I'll bet a lot of our listeners don't. Why don't you tell us about that? What
All
is
right.
that?
Well, I've been doing research about the cereal history in Battle Creek because we're going to be doing a kind of revamping our exhibit at the Welcome Center. And so I've been reading a lot about the sanitarium. And I don't, in my head, it's always just been this weird, wacky place, sort of the Road to Wellville. I don't know, remember that book and movie, just made it seem really absurd. But the more I read about it, the more I find out that it's just the sanitarium was just a really fancy spa. And the palm room was this indoor garden where Dr. Kellogg had his fancy exotic birds and butterflies, and you could sit in, even in winter, it would be like in the 70s. And so you could sit and relax, and there was a waterfall fountain. And my suggestion, I put a suggestion out on Facebook. Anybody can take this idea, but I think someone should recreate the palm room. I would buy admission to that just in the winter when it's middle of January. Well,
yeah. And you mentioned in your in today's installment how far ahead of his time John Harvey Kellogg was, and I don't think we fully appreciate that, or many people fully appreciate that. I mean, the palm room, the spa, but his commitment to um, investing in public infrastructure for people to be able to recreate, and his sunshine rooms, which were really kind of like the precursor of senior centers, although they were bigger than that. They were more geared to the whole family. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I find myself in the newspaper archive a lot more now than I did when I worked at the newspaper, and it's really fascinating to look back on our town and see how it evolved, and to think about where it could evolve too. So, yeah. Well, the Welcome Center.
And history is one of our biggest attractors to people who are just stopping in for a day trip. They ask about the history. We have a couple like walking tours that you can go on that are based or especially on history.
Yeah. And at the library, we often would find people come in on the weekends and look for, maps and things like that. So yeah. So it sounds like you're really enjoying your job.
Yeah. Yes, I am. I never thought when I lost my job at the Inquirer, it felt like I'd never get a job that I would be using the skills that I love. But I found this in this job. I'm writing, I'm organizing, I'm going out into the community, I'm learning new things. And I have to push myself a little bit more when it comes to learning about things like marketing. Branding is something I'm kind of beginning to learn about. And but it's all communication, it's all storytelling. And that's what I truly love is storytelling.
Yeah.
No matter how you do it.
Yeah. And in the pandemic, do you see more local tourism? And by that, I mean people rediscovering their town. And are they turning to you for that?
In terms of
Band. And it sounds like
hi, Matt. Yes, Matt was one of the people I told I was going to be a librarian. I think back when I was working at Zuka's, come through the line, and I was a cashier there. I think local people are really rediscovering our parks and green spaces.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a lot more use of art and historic Bridge Park, the Calhoun County Trailway, Lila Arboretum, and which is great because I think those are truly special. Something that makes Battle Creek truly special is just how much wonderful green space we have.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's pandemic related or not, but I mean, this is the first year that I've spent a lot of time on the Kalamazoo River. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Well,
gorgeous. It's
yes,
gorgeous.
yes.
Especially you go up, towards Albion, and it's just a gorgeous resource. And this last weekend, I told you I was canoeing up on the Osable, which is pretty,
Mm-hmm.
but I just thought, wow, Kalamazoo is just. I mean, it's quite an asset in our community that I don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have a lot of people trying to raise awareness. Chris Kosmowski and other folks who are, yeah, it's beautiful. Everybody, check it out. But yeah, so that's a good thing.
I think I did an article about or talked to the people down at Marshall Recreation because they do kayak rentals,
Hmm.
and they definitely have seen an uptick in kayak and canoe rentals.
Yeah,
So yeah, this was definitely a good year for the river, I think,
yeah,
as well.
absolutely. So another question about your job
Mhm.
before we move into other stuff. Um, what what do you expect? What are you looking forward to? You talked about the changing the welcome center, but what do you think next year is going to be like?
Well, I think next year, so this was supposed to be, I think, downtown Battle Creek's year, and that definitely got derailed. But I think next year we're going to be seeing a lot more life in downtown Battle Creek. And as someone who has worked downtown for more than a decade, um, I'm really excited to see new people come and find out just what a great place it is to be.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I've been spending a lot of time in Cafe Rica lately. That's just and my guest next week, uh, Tristan Breedoff. He and his brother Jackson own Cafe Rica, but he's going to be here.
Yeah, they made that into a really beautiful space.
It's awesome. I work from there a lot. I take video conference calls there. It's a nice backdrop. Not as nice as my fire, of course, but
No, and you said you were going to mention how big it is.
oh,
Uh,
how big it is. That's right. 2 weeks ago, Carla Fales shamed me. She said her fire was a lot bigger. Ha ha ha. So, although it's not as big as it was when you came on, I can see it burning down quickly behind me. But I
yeah.
need a fire tender.
I'm going to throw some more stuff to burn.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well, maybe that's what should just be your live stream is nothing but the fire.
nothing but the fire.
I would watch that. That seems really calming.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done that before, actually. Oh, maybe one more question, and
Okay.
we can commiserate about this because I wanted to ask if you miss working in a newspaper.
Oh, good question. I have been thinking about it a little bit lately. And what I've been thinking about lately is that I mean, I obviously miss the people. We worked with such great people, and
Yeah,
I miss all of them. Um, and being part of a team with them. Now I love my new team as well, but I do miss my old team. Um, but what I've been thinking about lately is I think I hate to say the word miss,
yeah,
but I think I miss the adrenaline of it a little bit. Like it was just constant adrenaline. Um, and so things can sometimes, things outside the newsroom, the world outside the newsroom sometimes seems to move a little slowly. And less stressfully, which you think would, which is a good thing. And it's definitely helped with my work-life balance. But I think sometimes I just miss that, that pressure, that high.
Yeah. I mean, it was called a Daily Mirror. I mean, the Daily Miracle paper.
Yeah.
And I miss it too. I think my colleagues at the library, which is, and there's a lot of similarities. Like you, I have found the library to be a place where I could continue to stay engaged with the community, to serve the public, to tell stories, and even doing an interview. And that's a lot of fun. But it's the opposite culture in a lot of ways, because it's much more cautious, and it's much more laid back. And I get really impatient. Like, we just do it. Dang it, we got deadline. But I also just miss the enterprise of having a community conversation in a really, and having a platform for that, and not just for the people who work there, but for the entire community. So, but there's a little bit of that here, so we'll just keep working at it. So, anyway. And I miss working with you too, Annie.
Well, thank you, Mac.
Yeah. So anyway,
not like we never see each other. I go to the library often.
I know. So yeah, and little secret, Annie, she's got a nice name and a nice face and a nice smile, and she's quiet and retiring. She has a temper, let me tell you. So anyway,
only when you aren't getting to the point at a meeting.
Who, me?
You were messing around with your chair, you're going off on little side stories.
Yeah, it takes all kinds. So, and you were there to keep me straight.
Yes.
So
we have a deadline.
Yeah, we have a deadline. Exactly. So, this is stories, and you are, you get brownie points for being one of my most prepared guests. But it's nearly Halloween, and I think you made an excellent choice. So why don't you tell us about it?
Okay, I will. So it's a little hard because everything is reflected the wrong way. So I chose Mexican Gothic by, there we go, Silvia Moreno Garcia. And I am a huge fan of this author. I've read her other books. She's really interesting in that each book is a different genre. Her last book was sort of a fantasy fairy tale. She's written sort of a Victorian mystery, a modern day thriller, a vampire novel. And so this one is, she definitely dips her toes into horror, kind of Gothic horror, which is not what I usually read. I don't like really scary books. I'm not going to be reading Lovecraft Country, which is kind of the HBO show that's on right now.
Yeah.
But I like the novel Rebecca, and I like, and I told you that another short story that this reminds me of is The Yellow Wallpaper. So sort of horror can definitely be used to tap into sort of social pressures and fears.
Yeah.
And she does a really excellent job with this in terms of not just addressing, like in The Yellow Wallpaper, sort of how women have to try to navigate the patriarchy, but also when you are a woman in a country that has been colonized by, I think she said in an interview I read, like there were at least three different colonizers of Mexico.
Well, the French, everybody knows about the Spanish, of course,
mm-hmm.
but the French,
mm-hmm.
Well, in the United States, but I think there was another. You're right.
Well, England, which
England,
is
yeah.
addressed
Which
in
is the
the novel.
character exactly? Yeah. How could I
So
forget?
yeah, because in this novel, it's a Gothic novel, so of course you have to go. It's about the character has to go to a mansion or a castle that's haunted or derelict, and she goes to a place called High Place, and it's a English mansion that's been built in Mexico, and I mean they even imported the imported soil from England so that they could grow try to grow English uh, plants, and so these English people have grown up generation from generation. Still acting like they're English and totally separating themselves from the native culture around them.
Yeah.
There is definitely they have this sense of superiority over the native culture.
Yeah. One of the interesting things in the book is that they don't speak Spanish, or
Yeah.
only one of them speaks Spanish.
Yes, and it becomes an important plot point.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
what I thought she did a brilliant job of, and you've already kind of mentioned this, and uh, and so I don't generally read Gothic. I need to confess that, and so I just did a little bit of reading about Gothic,
mhm,
um, and how it really rises in popularity in times of great social distress.
mhm,
And I think it's kind of and a lot of those themes that we're talking about now in current events are woven into this into this novel, into this story, and into the characters. And you
mhm,
mentioned women navigating the patriarchy in the 1950s in Mexico.
mhm,
A woman in particular, but also her cousin,
mhm.
who she goes to check on. And I want to. You're better at this stuff because you don't like spoilers, and I don't care about spoilers. So you tell people what the plot line is.
Okay, so the plot is Noemi is tasked by her father to go check on her cousin because her cousin sent them this crazy letter, and it sounds like she might be having a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And so she goes to this mansion that's in the middle of nowhere, and she finds this English family that is kind of starts. There's definitely she knows something's wrong, but they keep telling her nothing is wrong. Everything is okay, and it's her cousin who is the problem. It's not how they're treating her cousin. They're treating her cousin great, and why are you making a fuss about this? And but in her gut, she knows what's wrong. She just can't quite figure out what it is. But it it's still I know we're talking about all these social problems, but it's still a genre novel. It's
Yeah.
still it's a story that you don't wanna put down. It builds up the suspense, but the suspense is built on she knows something's wrong. She doesn't know what it is, and but she's getting a feeling that she may also fall prey to whatever happened to her cousin.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you have an excerpt that you're going to share. Set it up for us. Why'd you pick it, and then read it.
Okay. Well, I picked it. First off, I picked it because it was short. Max said I couldn't read 10 minutes. So,
Just like editing you. I mean, it's just the
yeah.
same. Oh,
But in these, so it's only about a page and a half. In this page and a half, um, you have sort of some of the tropes, which are she's in this house, but she's having a dream. Like having a dream is definitely a horror trope, um, or that kind of hints at what is wrong. But it's also there's definitely something wrong with the house, and it's possibly haunted. And you'll find out why when I read this section, why this hints at a haunting. But it's also when I talked to Mac, like for me, I found it very suspenseful from the beginning, because from the beginning there's this threat to Noemi of having her autonomy taken away, and this is reflected in the dream. But I'm going to try to just a second.
Oh, set the mood.
There's that. Let's see. No, I guess you can't see that. Okay. That's still spooky enough.
It's spooky.
I thought I could.
Oh, no, I can't say. Well, I tell you what. Let me. Oh, not you. I don't want to be solo. I want you to be solo. There, you're solo.
Okay. Second, let's see here. 55. All right. That night she dreamed that a golden flower sprouted from the walls in her room, only it wasn't. She didn't think it a flower. It had tendrils, yet it wasn't a vine, and next to the not flower rose 100 other tiny golden forms. Mushrooms, she thought, finally recognizing the bulbous shapes, and as she walked toward the wall, intrigued and attracted by the glow, she brushed her hands against these forms. The golden bulbs seemed to turn into smoke, bursting, rising, falling like dust upon the floor. Her hands were coated in this dust. She attempted to clean it off, wiping her hands on her nightgown, but the gold dust clung to her palms. It went under her nails. Golden dust swirled around her, and it lit up the room, bathing it in a soft yellow light. When she looked above, she saw the dust glittering like miniature stars against the ceiling, and below, on the rug, was another golden swirl of stars. She brushed her foot forward, disturbing the dust on the rug, and it bounced up into the air again, then fell. Suddenly, Noemi was aware of a presence in the room. She raised her head, her hand pressed against her nightgown, and saw someone standing by the door. It was a woman in a dress of yellowed antique lace. Where her face ought to have been, there was a glow, golden like that of the mushrooms on the wall. The woman's glow grew stronger, then dimmed. It was like watching a firefly in the summer night sky. Next to Noemi, the wall had started to quiver, beating to the same rhythm as the golden woman. Beneath her the floorboards pulsed too, a heart, alive and knowing. The golden filaments that had emerged together with the mushrooms covered the wall like a netting and continued to grow. She noticed then that the woman's dress was not made of lace, but was instead woven with the same filaments. The woman raised a gloved hand and pointed at Noemi, and she opened her mouth, but having no mouth since her face was a golden blur, no words came out. Noemi had not felt scared, not until now. But this, the woman attempting to speak, it made her indescribably afraid, a fear that traveled down her spine to the soles of her feet, forcing Noemi to step back and press her hands against her lips. She had no lips, and when she tried to take another step back, she realized that her feet had fused to the ground. The golden woman reached forward, reached toward her, and held Noemi's face between her hands. The woman made a noise, like the crunching of leaves, like the dripping of water onto a pond, like the buzzing of insects in the pitch-black darkness, and Noemi wished to press her hands against her ears, but she had no hands anymore. Noemi opened her eyes, drenched in sweat. For a minute, she didn't remember where she was, and then she recalled she had been invited to High Place. She reached for the glass of water she left by the bedside and almost knocked it down. She gulped down the whole glass and then turned her head. The room was in shadows. No light, golden or otherwise, dotted the wall's surface. Nevertheless, she had an impulse to rise and run her hands against the wall, as if to make sure there was nothing strange lurking behind the wallpaper.
So now I'm trying to get back in there. I don't want to be solo. I want you in. I want to spow with him. Oh, no. Technology is great when it works, or when I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, there we are. There we are. The world that writes.
Well,
yeah. And the dream scenes in the novel were really, I mean, that's where a lot of the fear, until the end of the novel, then it's more literal and visceral, and again, we don't want to give away because, but you mentioned of the mushrooms and the fungus, and without giving anything away, it's really brilliant how that weaves into. There's real science behind what's going on. This is not simply a haunting. It's not even fair to call it a haunting, I don't think, but it's a spooky thing.
Metaphorical haunting.
Metaphorical haunting, yeah. So, yeah, and so Mexican Gothic, come to Millard Library, pick it out. It's been moving quite well, actually. It was really highly anticipated, and it makes me want to read a little bit more of Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I didn't read. What was it?
Of Gods and Shadows.
Gods and Shadows, yes.
That one I really like too, but I like fairy tale retellings. So sort of where you have or folktale retelling, or things that are based in folk tales, fairy tales.
Yeah,
and she does an excellent job with that.
So if it hasn't been clear up to now, Annie's like a power reader. I mean, she reads a lot. I half expected you to come on, because Louise Glick won the Nobel Prize for Literature today, and I have to expect you to surprise me with something from that. Or do you read, Louise? So I did bring a couple of books from our collection. We only have a couple, but so I've decided that's something I want to read. I haven't read yet.
I've read her in compilations. I don't think I've read specifically one of her books that are specifically her. But with poetry right now, my big thing is the Slowdown, which is a podcast run by Tracy K. Smith, who's one of my favorite poets. She's brilliant. And so she chooses a poem a day to share. And you can also sign up for it on Instagram. And it's like just getting a little burst of poetry every day in your Instagram feed. So,
yeah, Annie really would be a great librarian. I mean, you, I think it was you that turned me on to David Wong. Am I getting that right?
No.
Maybe not. Okay. Well, if you want to know something to read, call up Annie. She's got all kinds of.
I have a list of recommendations from what I've read this summer and fall. Do you want to go through it real quick?
Sure. And Matt says we're ordering more Glick, so yay, Matt.
Then I'll get that from the library because I know we're short on time, but I do think it's important, as much as fun as helpful as a collection is in terms of you get to read a bunch of different authors. It's important to read a poet that's just their work and how they think it should be read. It's very specific, or it's very intentional. The order that they put their poems into a book.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna definitely check that out. But I'll go quick. These are books that I read this summer, kind of early fall, that I've really enjoyed. The Remains of the Day, Kazuo Ishiguro. It's about another good English novel about a butler who goes on a road trip, and while he's on this road trip, he's starting to think about what a great butler is. But unfortunately, what a great butler you are depends on the man you serve. And so you kind of begin to realize as he talks that the man who owned the house where he worked was not a great man. But how does that reflect on him? Yeah. So that's really, and obviously, talking about Nobel Prize winners, as a past Nobel winner. This is I got from the library. Good Talk by Mira Jacob. And this is based on Mira Jacob. She is Indian and her husband is Jewish. And so her son became old enough where he started asking questions about race and color. At one point, because she's trying to explain that sometimes white people can hate a person who is not white or be scared of them. And there's this one heartbreaking point. Her son asked, "Oh, is Dad scared of us because we have brown skin?" And so as a parent, she's kind of trying to figure out how to navigate what to tell him while also reflecting on her own experiences with racism. So, and it's told in comic book form too, so it makes it a little easier to read.
Yeah.
And so this was my beach read. Sex and Vanity by Kevin Kwan. And that it was great to read just for its descriptions of walking through Capri. And feeling like you're on an island in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean. So this is Memory of Babel. This came out. I was so excited. September. This is, let's see, the Mirror Visitor series. This was book 3. And this is it was originally published in French, so you don't see many translated fantasy novels, but it was really popular in Europe and has through Europa, show the Europa. If you have a Hoopla account, the app downloaded from Willard Library, they have all the Europa books, which is amazing. Yeah. So you can get this through Hoopla really easily. And it's if you liked Diana Wynne Jones or like Studio Ghibli movies, sort of like Kiki's Delivery Service or Spirited Away, then I definitely think you're gonna like the Mirror Visitor series. It's a well done fantasy that doesn't have to do with dudes with swords and dragons. The Switch by Beth O'Leary. This one made me cry a lot. But,
I used to do that too, though. But
you cry a lot?
No, it made you cry a lot.
Oh, well, I cry very easily. But yeah, there were a couple times where it was like Mac would get me to start crying, and I just couldn't stop. No, it wasn't Mac. It was.
I'm such a mean person. No, it was circumstance. Yeah. Well, we went through a hard time together.
Yeah. And I think that's why I miss our team, the old team, because you came out the other side, kind of.
Yeah.
But the Switch is really great if you're looking for something that is really sweet. So he makes Matt cry too. I know. That's why you gotta always have a box of tissues. But the Switch, so it's just about a woman in her 30s and her grandmother, and they're both mourning. They've been in mourning for a year over her sister's death, and so they decide that they need to do something to finally get through the grieving process. And what they do is the grandma moves into her apartment in London, and the character moves into her grandma's village, small village, and so they kind of get a chance to reassess things. And it's definitely a great book too about older women going out and dating and having sexy times.
Good for them.
2 more. So real quick. This is my 2 nonfiction. Trevor Noah, Born a Crime. This was a book that everyone says is good, and turns out everyone is right. It is really easy to read, and just what he's been through is amazing. And it's I'm sorry, I know you're probably trying to hurry me along. I can talk about books for a long time.
I know you can. No, we're
Zadie,
good.
Zadie Smith Intimations. It's very short, but these are all essays that she wrote at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's absolutely brilliant. Just, it helps. You know, sometimes the great thing about reading is it helps you feel things and also process things.
Yeah.
And this helped me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was totally unplanned and unrehearsed, folks. But I knew that she would have a list.
Yeah, well, I was like, he can't stop me. I'm gonna have a pile of books, and he'll have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But,
So, anyway, it was fun to have you on. We'll have you back. You know, maybe about one of those or something else. But yeah, it's been great to have you on and talk to you, and love the work you're doing at the and the newsletter. How do people subscribe to the newsletter?
Go to our website at battlecreekvisitors.org, or just look up the Calhoun County Visitors Bureau website. And if you scroll down the page, you'll see just sort of a little box that says sign up for the newsletter, and put your email address in there, and I'll be in your news or your email every week.
Yeah, you know, and it picks up on the theme we had at the library here. Was it last year, 2 years ago? Time is just love where you live. If you want to rediscover your home, and we could have talked about your family's history here too. So I definitely have to have you back. But it's a great little resource. It takes you just a few minutes to read, but you can end up spending hours in your town or in your community with the things that she brings out. So,
and that definitely feels like my theme is love where you live.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be blind to it, but
sure.
You know, sometimes there are things that we just take for granted, and you kind of have to look at it with new eyes.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Annie. Have a great rest of the week. Yeah, absolutely. You take care.
Bye.
And again, come back next week. Tristan Breedoff, Cafe Rica. We'll have fun. Take care.
Bye.